All right, so the next term you see here is a fixture. Big one, big term. Y'all make sure you know what a fixture is, but y'all, it's personal property that's been attached to real property. And once it's attached, you got to be careful with fixtures. In fact, let me give you this example why this is a big deal. Okay. But again, just to be clear, a fixture is personal property that for whatever reason or for, it's been attached to real property. Then it becomes a fixture. Let me give you a real world example. And this is one that I was involved with. This is actually several years ago now, but it's still a good example. But I was showing a house to a buyer. He was a single guy, buying for himself. And I was showing him this house. And after we finished walking through the entire house, we were standing in, I guess you'd call it the family room, maybe. And, and we're just talking. And I'm trying, I'm asking some questions, trying to figure out, first of all, do you even like the house? Is this a possibility or what? And, and he basically said, you know what, Frank, it's a nice house. And by the way, this was a $700,000 home. So it ought to be nice for that kind of money. But he said it's a very nice home. He just wasn't sure that it was the right home for him. Yeah. But the whole time he and I were talking, one thing I kept noticing is, he wasn't looking at me. He was watching the TV. The seller left her TV on and he would not take his eyes off the TV. I mean, it was insane.
That's strange.
So I asked him this question. I said, buyer, you like that TV? He said, Frankie, that TV is nice. It was. That TV, it was gigantic. I've never, ever seen a TV that big. Even to this day, I've never seen one. I can just tell you, it wouldn't even fit in my house.
Oh, wow.
Even if I had it sitting on the floor, there wouldn't be enough for it would be hitting on the ceiling. I'm telling you, this thing was gigantic. And now I've seen some of these kind of, and by the way, it wasn't one of these projector type things. It was a TV that was that big. Perfect. The picture was perfect. It wasn't blurred at all. I mean, it was nice. But anyway, he said he liked that TV. And I said, well, you want that TV? He said, well, you think the sellers will leave it? I said, all we can do is ask. All we can do is ask. He said, well, if you think they might leave that TV, then let's go for it. Let's make an offer.
Wow.
So a couple points to make here. One, you're going to be absolutely astonished at what will make a buyer want a house. And you're going to be just as astonished when you find out some of the reasons they say they don't want it. It's just, people are just weird. So anyway, I wrote up the offer. All I needed was for him to sign it so I could take it to the other agent. And I remember he started to lean over to sign it, but right before he signed it, he said, now, Frankie, did you remember to put in here about the TV station? And I said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Just sign it. He said, Frankie, did you put it in here? Is it in here? I said, I told you I'll take care of it. Just sign it. Press hard, 3 copies. And well, then he backs completely away from it.
Oh, no.
And he was serious, and he told me, as a matter of fact, he said, Frankie, you get me in a situation where I'm stuck buying this house and it doesn't include that TV, you've got a problem. He wasn't cutting up and he wasn't kidding at all. He was serious about that. I said, I got it. Just sign it. I'll take care of it. So anyway, so he did. He signed it. And me and the listing agent, we had to go back and forth a little bit, negotiating a few things here and there. But at the end of the day, the seller accepted the offer.
Oh, really?
And y'all, we're doing the things we need to do to prepare for closing. And about a week before we were supposed to close, y'all, something came up. I don't even remember what it was or what the reason was, but y'all, I had to meet the other agent back out at the house for some reason. And we were standing in the same room, the family room where this TV was, and talking. And while we were standing there, I went in and told the listing agent, I said, you know what, we're already under contract now, so I can say this. But I can tell you, the only reason my buyer is even buying this house because of that TV. I mean, he just absolutely fell in love with that TV. And the agent said, Frankie, that TV's not staying.
Oh, no.
I said, well, that one is. And I suggest you don't touch it and don't you let nobody else touch it. That TV's staying here. He said, no, it's not. He said the sellers, one, never agreed to leave the TV. And even if you had asked, they would have never agreed to do it. They're not going to leave it. I said, well, you better go read your contract again, because I'm telling you, it says it's staying. And of course, all kind of colors started coming over his face. And
I'm pretty sure.
and he said, well, I got a copy of the contract in the car. I'll go get it. I said, well, go get it. And he did. Y'all, he went and got it, came back inside. He's flipping through the contract, looking for it. He said, it's not here. Nowhere in here did you ask for that TV. Y'all, here's where the problem, here's where we were running into a problem. Y'all, there are several, y'all, I think in the contract that we use here locally, there's like 33 paragraphs or 33 provisions within the contract of sale. A lot of those paragraphs have blanks in them where you got to fill stuff in, write stuff in, you just fill in the blank kind of thing. Well, some of these provisions, there's no blanks. Y'all, there's nothing to fill in. It's just verbiage that you read. And y'all, I'm telling you, you better read these contracts. You don't just read the part that has something to fill in a blank. You better read that entire contract. Because what this agent missed, there's a provision in the contract. Y'all, it's been there as long as I've been practicing real estate. So it's nothing new. But apparently he had never read the contract. Didn't know it was there. But here's what it says. It clearly says this sale includes all fixtures currently attached to or planted on the premises. Y'all, that TV was mounted, bracketed to the wall.
Wow.
That's a fixture. So he was expecting me to just write something in there about the TV set. Y'all, I got to write nothing in. The contract already says if you've got it attached to the property, that's a fixture, and fixtures stay with the property. Y'all, when the seller found out about it, apparently, and I never talked to them, praise God, but they were not happy.
I'm pretty sure.
I know they talked to at least one attorney. I know that for a fact because that attorney, I just happened to know him and he told me about it.
Oh, wow.
But they told me, well, you agreed to leave it. According to the contract, you're going to be in default if you don't leave it. Y'all, so he had to leave it. So, y'all, the point I'm trying to make, one, you better know what a fixture is. And you better make sure when you get out there practicing, whether you're representing the buyer or the seller, either one, you better know, and your client better know what's staying and what's going. What's included, what's not included.
Thoroughly read.
Question.
Yes.
With something, I want to say that important because the buyer, that was the deal breaker. Could you have gone in and done some sort of addendum or written that in because that was an important issue to the buyer, or just rely on that statement in there? That all
I could have wrote it up on 5 addendums and attached it, but it was not necessary because it already stated it in the contract.
in the fixtures.
But had the seller said that it wasn't staying and put it in?
Well, they would have had, well, and here's where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Appreciate the question, but here's where I wanted to go with this. Y'all, every time I list a house for sale, every house, I don't care what sales price is, every house, before we put the house on the market, I grabbed the seller by the hand.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I said, let's go for a walk.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're walking around
the
the house,
house.
room by room. And I'm looking for things that are fixed, attached, bookshelves that they've got attached to the wall, or these flat screen TVs attached to the wall. In fact, I'm gonna tell you a big one right now. If the house happens to have a formal dining room,
Mhm.
you better ask that seller if they planning on leaving the chandelier or are they planning to take it with them.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times when it comes to these chandeliers, y'all sellers say, "Oh, Frankie, that chandelier's been in my family for 10,000 years. Ain't no way I'm leaving that here." Okay, well then you need to take it down
Mhm.
now,
Before-
Yeah.
right now,
Right.
and put something back up in its place.
Gotcha.
Because the way the law reads, once the buyer comes in and sees it,
Yeah.
if it's attached when they make their offer, it's there. It's included. So you can't come out and say, well, no, I never intended to leave that there. Y'all, in fact, what you'll see a lot of times is sellers go around and they'll put like a sticky note on, like on stuff that this is not staying. Now that sticky note is not contractual.
No.
If it ain't in the contract, that sticky note ain't gonna help you none. Right? Y'all, we're supposed to be professionals. We don't walk around with sticky notes to figure out what's staying and what's not. Seller, if you don't want to leave it, get it out of here.
Mhm.
Y'all, I've never had a buyer ask for anything they've never seen. So if there's any question, and I'm talking about something to a lot of times even personal property, even though I know that's not included with the sale. I know about seller. I'm just telling you, if a buyer sees that, I know it's not included,
Mhm.
but if a buyer sees it, they're going to want it, and they're going to ask you for it. Now you don't have to agree to leave it, but when you tell them no, then everything's going to turn personal. Their emotion is going to become very emotional, because then the buyer's going to come up and say, "Well, what do you mean no? Well, why can't I have it? Well, you got a problem against me? What? Why can't? Well, I ain't got to have your. I'll buy a house down the street." Yup, and that's where we go.
All right.
So y'all just look for those potential problems and get them out of there. Don't let the buyer even see stuff like that. Get it out. Seller, you planning on moving anyway? Let's start with this. Get it out. Y'all follow?
Question for you.
Yes.
Now, the last sentence, it says agents must specify questionable items of property in the written sales contract. What does that look like? How does that, because there's that, paragraph in there that just says all personal property. So what is that last sentence? How does that change things?
Well, if there's something that's questionable, in other words, you're not sure, for some reason, you can't determine if it's real property or personal property. Because, I mean, based on the way the contract sale reads, real property, which fixtures,
right,
once it becomes real property, once you attach, it's real property.
Mhm.
But if it's something you just not sure about, I'm not sure if that's attached or not. Then for clarity, you might just write it in there.
Right.
This
Okay.
particular item, we
Mhm.
want to stay or whatever.
Okay.
But I would include it in a bill of sale just to be safe.
Okay.
If you're going to do that. But yeah, I'm just going to tell you, if you can't differentiate between real property and personal property, you're going to have a hard time. It's not hard. Real property is attached. Anything not attached is personal property, and no personal property is included. Right?
So wall decor, I guess it's not attached because it's nailed to the wall. So that's still your personal property, correct?
You mean like a picture or something?
Yeah, like you have like
typically a
mirrors
picture
and
just
stuff.
hanging on the nail.
Right.
I can
Yes,
walk
it's
into
just-
that picture and just walk
Take
away,
it
so
off.
it's not
Gotcha.
attached.
Personal.
Okay. All right. So now we know what a fixture is.
Mhm.
Well, the next thing we take a look at are there are 4 tests of a fixture. So in other words, if you're trying to figure out, is this a fixture or is this personal property? There are 4 tests that you can try to use to help you ascertain whether it is in fact a fixture or not. And by the way, they could ask you what are the tests, or which of the following would be a test of a fixture, that kind of stuff. So I would know the 4 tests of a fixture. Well, the first test is simply the contract or the agreement. Y'all, what does the contract say? What did the two parties agree to? Well, y'all, I already told you what's in the standard contract to sale. It says fixtures stay, right? In fact, the exact verbiage, fixtures currently attached to or planted on the premises. Now, by the way, planted, what does that mean? Y'all actually had a seller was telling me that she had a rose bush out in the yard that apparently was somehow tied to her mom or something like, but anyway, it had, that was a special bush for her. And she just happened to tell me that she was not leaving that rose bush. I said, well, then dig it up now.
Yeah.
Get it out of here right now. Because again, if it's attached or planted on the premises, it's staying once that buyer makes the offer. Okay. Everybody's clear.
Yes.
The next test of a fixture is annexation. And that annexation is dealing with the method of attachment. Now, and by the way, they could ask you that. What are you dealing with if we're, when it comes to method of attack or something like that, just know annexation is dealing with the method of attachment. And here's why or how you might use something like this.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Say for example, there's a, somebody mentioned a shed earlier. There's a shed in the backyard. And the buyer's wanting to know, is this shed going to be staying or is the seller going to be taking the shed with them when they move? Do we need to ask the seller if they'll leave? That kind of stuff. Well, first of all, determine, is this shed a fixture? Is it attached or is it not attached? If it's just sitting on top of the ground, or maybe sometimes you'll see where they got like cinder blocks or something that are sitting on top of, that's not attached. That's just, the blocks are there just to level it mainly. But if I happen to notice, and I do look at this, because y'all have done it, y'all got a shed in my backyard, I've done the same thing. I've got it sitting on blocks, but the last thing I want is a strong wind to come by and blow it off the blocks, right? Well, you can go to places like Lowe's or Home Depot and you can buy, they're like screws, but they're like 3 feet long screws, 3 foot long screws.
Okay.
And you can screw that thing down into the ground and it's got a band basically, so now the shed is tied down. Well, now it's attached. So, and I'm telling you, those are common. And when I see those things where you've tied the shed down, that means you've now attached it to the land. Do I need to go ask the seller if they're planning on leaving the shed or not?
No.
No, it's staying. It was here when we made our offer and it's going to be here when we move in too. That's a fixture, because once you attach something, it's considered annexed. It becomes part of the property when you attach it.
A quick question.
Yeah.
So say what you said just now happens and you come and you see a shed on the site that's attached, and then when you buy your home, the shed is mysteriously somehow gone. What would be the next action?
Well,
What
it's up to the buyer. They may decide it's just not worth fooling with or messing with, but from a legal standpoint, I could get an attorney and have them make that seller bring that shed back, put it right back.
Okay.
Because they agreed to leave it.
Yep.
And I will tell you now from a real world point of view, if I've got a closing today with a buyer, they're getting ready to close on the house today, right before we close, I go by the house.
Yes.
I do a walkthrough. I check on that kind of stuff. And if I happen to see that shed ain't there,
Right.
we ain't closing.
There you go.
That'll fix that problem.
Right.
You bring the shed back, we'll reschedule the closing.
Got it.
Okay. All right. anyways, that's annexation. Once it's attached, it's considered to be a fixture, which is now real property. The third test is adaptation. Now, I'll just take, this one all by itself can be a rather difficult one to use, I guess, but I'll still give you a couple examples. Say you got a house with a gas fireplace. Well, if it's a gas fireplace, that means there's gas logs in the fireplace. Well, 99%, if not 100% of the time, those gas logs are technically personal property. Okay? Because the logs are not attached. They're just sitting inside that gas fireplace.
Mhm.
Now, the only thing, if you want to debate a little bit, you might say, well, it is attached because it's got to be attached to a gas line. Well, the law says utility lines all by themselves does not constitute attachment. So just because you ran that gas line to the gas logs, it's not attached. Same thing with the refrigerator. Just because you might have a water line going to the back of the refrigerator, it's still personal property because we haven't attached the refrigerator.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So a utility line does not make something attached. So technically speaking, could the seller, when they move out, take the gas logs with them?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I can see where they can make that argument, but I think that's where adaptation would come into play.
Gotcha, because you need the gas
There you go.
logs.
Because adaptation really is dealing with if whatever it is you're going to remove or take with you, how will that affect how whatever you're leaving can be used,
Used.
or two, how could it affect the value of what you're leaving?
Mhm.
How does it adapt to what it is you're leaving? So I think I could argue those gas logs you cannot take due to adaptation. You take the logs, I can't use the fireplace.
Mhm.
So my argument, if you're going to take the logs, then why don't you take the fireplace with you? Right? Another real quick example of adaptation might be, I don't know how many of you have this, and if you don't have it yourself, I'm sure you know somebody that does, but where you got garage doors with remote control garage doors. A lot of times they'll have the remotes like in the visor of their vehicle, so that when they're
Yes.
pulling up and driving, hit the button and the door comes up so they can pull in.
Mhm.
Well, obviously that remote is personal property. It's not attached to anything.
Mhm.
But why would you take the remote? I need it to open that garage door
Right.
that I'm getting ready to buy.
That's a good example.
Exactly.
Right? So again, that might be another example of adaptation. And then the last test you see there is intent. Now, where this one's going to come into play is if for some reason, and y'all, hopefully none of you it'll ever come to this point. But y'all, is it possible that the buyer and the seller could just decide to sue each other? We're going to court over this. Yeah, it happens. I've never personally had it happen to me where we actually wound up going to court over it, but it could happen. And if you're going to go to court suing somebody for whether something should stay or go, then the question the judge has to determine is, well, what was the intent between the two parties? Did you both intend for it to stay, or did you intend for it to go? So how will we prove what the party's intent was? I promise you that they're going to go right back up to number one and look at the contract. Well, what did the contract say?
Right.
Did the contract say it's staying or is it going? Y'all, this is why that contract's got to be worded just right. You better know what's in these contracts, or you could be leaving your client out there hanging if you're not careful, and they're not going to like it. Okay, doke. Any questions there? We good?
I have a question, just because I'm curious. So, like a sprinkler system or alarm, those things would be considered like an improvement or a fix, or would that be a fixture?
Well, no, it's a fixture. It's considered real property because it's attached.
Okay.
You talking about like these underground sprinklers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's attached. Yeah, that's gonna stay.
Okay.
I can't imagine anybody try to dig that up and take it.
I know.
That'd be more trouble than it's worth. By the time you got it dug out, the whole yard would be flooded away. Tearing up all the plumbing, the water lines and everything else. Okay. Y'all, the next term you see here is a trade fixture. Now, this is one, y'all do not confuse a trade fixture with a fixture. Two different things here. In fact, in the very first sentence under trade fixture, what does it say? What kind of property is a trade fixture?
Personal
Personal
property.
property.
It's personal property, and I would remember that. For exam purposes, y'all remember that. Trade fixtures are personal property, but here's what makes it unique. Y'all, a trade fixture is personal property that's been attached to real property by a tenant that is leasing commercial space for their business or trade. Now, a few things about that definition I just gave you. Number one, did I say anything about a residential property?
No.
No. Y'all, this is for commercial property that a tenant is leasing, and they needed to attach something to the building or to the ground or land or whatever, because they needed it for whatever kind of business or trade they were in. Y'all, that's a trade fixture. So the question is now, y'all, in fact, I'll give you this example. I use myself, my real estate school. Now, I get it. I assume probably none of y'all have actually been to my actual school because we're not doing live classes in the classroom right now. But where our school is located, I don't own the building, praise God, but I do rent the building, or part of it anyway. Well, one of the things I had to do when we first got there, I bought these very large flat screen TVs and attached it to the wall because I use it to display PowerPoint presentations and videos for students to be able to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got these big TVs up in the front of the class so people can, so students can see what it is I'm doing. Well, now that I've attached those TVs to the building, then I guess, the first question would be, well, who now owns those TVs, me or the property owner?
You do.
I do, because it's a trade fixture.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Because I'm using it for my business or trade. But here's the part you've got to remember. Y'all, let's say my lease is getting ready to expire and I have no intentions of renewing the lease. I'm moving somewhere else. Well, the law says if you have any trade fixtures, they have to be removed. You got to unattach it, remove it from the property, of course, including repairing any damage you may have caused to the wall. But you have to remove it, unattach it prior to the lease expiring. Y'all, if you allow that lease to expire and it's still attached, it's no longer a trade fixture. It now belongs to the property owner. So y'all make sure you remember those details about a trade fixture, because y'all, you're going to see that again, I promise you. Guaranteed. Okie doke. Any other questions there? Actually, let's